Hello, my name is Rocco Strangio, and I'm the host of the Law, AI, and Money podcast. I bring on attorneys, engineers, and entrepreneurs to unravel the world of AI and to discuss how it'll affect the legal profession. Today, I'm joined by Jason Jordan, the founder of Jordan Law Firm and Iconographics. Jason is a hugely successful trial attorney. His verdicts exceed hundreds of millions, and he's received numerous awards for his work as a litigator. On top of his success as a trial attorney, Jason and his wife Michelle co-founded Iconographics, a platform designed to provide juries with tailored and realistic renditions of accident scenes. In our conversation, Jason and I discussed the art of being a litigator, the risks of being an entrepreneur, and of course, his company Iconographics. Stay tuned for a sneak peek into Iconographics' awesome work. We hope you enjoyed this conversation. Jason, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. First of all, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the podcast, share your experiences, share your views on being an entrepreneur and owning a law firm, being an attorney. And I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy.
No worries, man. I actually enjoy doing these kind of things. And I'm actually on a little bit of a vacation right now with my kids on spring break. So it's kind of nice. We're down here in Florida. A little chillier than I thought it was going to be, but still it's nice.
Florida was nice. AAJ was beautiful in Miami.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a little more south. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you're in Colorado. Did you always grow up in Colorado?
No, actually, I was born and raised in New Jersey. When I was a junior in high school, my parents moved to Colorado. I stayed back, lived with a good friend of mine, graduated high school, and I moved to Colorado 2 days after I graduated. Yeah. And spent.
Did you want to stay in New Jersey? What was?
I would have loved to have stayed in New Jersey. I really did, and I wanted to, which is why I stayed back for my senior year. But I'm glad I got out when I did. I think it's probably one of the best things to happen to me. In fact, I think I try to push my kids now to get out, get away from the home, get away from mom and dad, and experience that. Having that 1 year as a senior, to be honest, was kind of like my freshman year in college, where I could cut loose and do the things that a lot of freshmen in college do. But then when I actually got to college, I was much more serious because I'd already kind of gone through that phase.
You had your year. Yeah.
It was a little beneficial for me, I think, to be honest.
Totally. I mean, I can sense a little bit. You have that New Jersey.
Yeah.
Dog
you knew that. I've been gone for like 27 years, but it doesn't leave you. I mean, if you put me back in the environment, I went back for a funeral recently and saw a bunch of my Italian cousins from the shore. And I was down there with them, and it was just, I mean, I come home, my kids are like looking at me like, did he say coffee? And I'm like, yeah, sorry.
The water.
Yeah, the water, water.
But so what made you want to become an attorney? How did that?
That's a great question. So, my father used to always tell me I'd make a good lawyer. I remember once we were in Jersey, we had a huge snowstorm, and he offered me $20, told me to go outside and shovel the driveway. And it was a huge storm. It's that wet snow. It's heavy. I had this driveway that was a pretty decent length. Not that bad, but it was going to take a lot of time. And I see the city plow guy going by. I run out in the street and flag him down, and I'm trying to give him the 20 to plow my driveway. And my father came out laughing, and he's like, man, you'd make a good lawyer, like you're out there already negotiating deals. But really, I think when I was going through high school and college in general, I really got into, I've always been a big history buff. I love history, world history, U.S. history, a lot of stuff. I just really enjoy, I always have. And with that, naturally, I think comes more of an understanding about the world around you and thus politics, right? Current events as well. So I really went thinking I was going to go into politics and just thinking that was like a logical step, have a law degree. And then when I was in law school, I got an internship pretty early on at a firm doing what I ultimately do now. And I learned really quickly I could do a lot more for people here and make a good living than I could in politics. And, when I was in college, I worked for a politician. And I'll never forget it. Something one of his friends said to me that made me think twice about politics. So it kind of like naturally progressed into law.
Yeah. No, I mean, you kind of have to, there's a lot of people, I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but a lot of my buddies in law school, a lot of them were history majors. And if they weren't, they appreciated history. And
I'm in the same boat. I mean, and I think it helps I mean, it just flows naturally, knowing about precedent,
Yeah.
knowing about current events and like the context of everything.
That's what I was going to say. It's easier to understand it when you understand the context of the world at that time when things were going on or when that law was created.
Totally,
or
totally.
repealed or whatnot.
I mean, understanding administrations too, and how they can affect laws that impact the personal injury space.
Yeah.
Whether it's caps on settlements or, the immunity they afford certain.
Yeah, the big tort reform rolls of 1986. Every state got hit some way or the other. Colorado got hit huge. We're still trying to come out of it. It's a shame. And then you saw the legislature just getting taken over by big insurance companies. They don't even bother really, with Democrats that much anymore. There's so much in their pocket. They're buying off Republicans now too. And it's like, I mean, you can't get anything. It's hard to get things passed in the legislature. You can. You got to work really hard and you got to have a lot of money and a lot of backing. And that's why the insurance carriers always and the lobbyists always go after the greedy trial lawyers, right? Is because we're the only ones standing up to them. There's no coalition of pre-injured people going, well, that law sounds like if I get electrocuted, that might be really fucked up for my family. So they run down to the legislature and give speeches about how it's a bad law. No, it's just lawyers that do that, right? We're the only ones that act as that last line of defense between insurance companies, big business, and, letting them get away with anything rather than sticking up for the people, right? We're the only ones doing that. So they denigrate us and call us, ambulance chasers and that sort of thing. But even most of the legislators don't really know what we do. I mean, I spent years in the Colorado Trial Lawyer Association. I was the president of the organization. I've dealt with our lobbyists for years. I've dealt with, testifying at the House and the Senate, and they really don't know what we do. And they really don't give a shit, to be honest. I mean, we had one legislator once tell one of our lobbyists, what are they going to do? Give their money to the Republicans? That's what they said. And it was like, they could do whatever they want, the Democrats. They just took us for granted because they knew they could, Yeah. So it's a battle, what we do, for sure.
Totally. I mean, we're the regulation in the space. I mean, most of the safety precautions or when you look at like food, for example, because I know there's, in the world of mass torts where I primarily work in, there's a lot of litigation centering around ultra processed food, baby food that has been poisoned by lead contamination because somebody was trying to increase profits by intentionally putting lead in the product because of the weight that it adds, the sweetness it may add, and the color factor it may provide.
And so what we allow to go into our food supply and what it's done to our population in America.
I mean, it's the United States is behind when it comes to developed countries in the world. Yeah. Thankfully, we have a civil system that allows us to prosecute these cases and hopefully impose some regulation, almost push the defendants to make a financial decision where to save their own ass, they're gonna put in a safety precaution, right?
Right. They don't want to keep getting hit, so they make the change because it's cheaper to do so than it was before because they're going to wind up injuring these people. Now they actually have to pay for it. That's why caps are so fucked up. You put caps on things, you can say, hey, come to Colorado. You can be as reckless as you want, You can only get
that's where they get hit is the punitives.
Right.
Punitives that really pushes them to make change.
Yeah, but if you have a cap on your punitives, on your compensatory, and your cap is like Colorado, one time your compensatory, well, you cap it at $1 million, let's say, and then you can go get 100 million on punitives, but they only have to pay another $1 million. Yeah. So it's like, if they're bringing in 80 billion a year, what the hell do they care?
Yeah. Well, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. But I mean, the verdict at that point is almost just symbolic,
Yeah, no, totally. Jason, I know you practice a wide variety of personal injury cases. You're not really limited in what kind of cases you've tried. You handle product cases,
right?
Medical device, personal injury, catastrophic injury, motor vehicle accidents. What are some of the more difficult cases to work on in terms of, dealing with the trauma that some claimants might be going through?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question. Difficulty with respect to dealing with clients and their trauma in and of itself. Yeah. I find brain injury cases are oftentimes difficult in the sense of just the the ability to communicate with your client, right? The ability to understand what is exactly going on. Because if they're brain injured, not only they may not be able to communicate with you as well, but they have bad memory issues. They have, maybe violent outbursts and things like that, where it's like you have to really, those are very difficult. But, we learn how to handle that over time. You just got to be very patient and got to understand at all times. That's why you're here to represent them, is because they have these injuries. This is not just some jackass person being a, awful person. They're injured, But in general, I think dealing with trauma and dealing with your clients, earlier in my career, I find myself where I would take it home a lot. I'd be thinking about it at night and it would really bother me. Nowadays it still does. There's no question, but not as bad. I think I'm able to kind of leave it at the front door, kind of, when I come home to the family and the wife and kids. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to think about, your clients and what they're going through. And I think it's in different phases of the litigation, right? So when you first pick up the case, you're really worried about, how do I help this person the most with respect to getting to the right doctors, getting the best medical care, and getting them as better as you can possibly get them.
Yeah.
Okay. While also having good expert witnesses who, if you have to go to trial, they're not only going to testify, they're going to want to. They're going to be more of an advocate for your client rather than a doctor who's like, I don't want to get involved in this. Right. So coordinating that is always an issue with those folks, or anybody really. But that's the first kind of step of like that transition throughout the case, where then it kind of becomes, through the litigation process, where you're getting them ready for their deposition and trying to explain to them the whole legal process as you're going through it. It's not always fair. It's not always, just, and having to have those conversations, I think, as well. And then I think as you're getting towards a point in time where you're getting, let's say, real numbers on the table and you're having to contemplate, do I keep pushing? I think they deserve more. But you're looking at the number and what it could actually do for them in their life right now. I'm a moral person. I don't want to just push something further for my own name or my own recognition or my own pocketbook. I'm trying to actually get the right amount for my client. I had one recently where we were leading up on it. I had a lot of money on the table and we were coming very close to trial. And I started not getting cold feet, but getting really concerned of, man, if I don't beat that number at this point, this person's really injured. They have a lot of needs. And I was able to get more and still get it resolved. And that person now is, we talk all the time. We're friendly with each other, and they have the money and the needs that they have the money to meet their needs for the rest of their life and probably a generation or two after. So they're well taken care of, and that makes me feel good. That's the rewarding part, where, they'll send me the property they bought and where it's handicap accessible and they can, handle all their needs, and you see it. And you realize all that you did for them, and that's the rewarding part, really.
Totally. I mean, you kind of already answered it. I wanted to sort of go into, I know you obtain very large settlements for your clients, and I want to congratulate you on that. I think you actually won the largest motor vehicle accident case settlement in Colorado history. Is that correct?
I don't know if it is. I think it is, but I don't have any proof that it is or not. It's one of those things. How do you not if someone else doesn't have one? Well, they're not telling you. But I've never heard of one that high.
For my listeners, the settlement was upwards of over $40 million. When you're dealing with settlements of this size, first I want to congratulate you. That's unbelievable. But when you're dealing with settlements of this size, people don't. I think laymen don't kind of appreciate the trauma and all the care that goes into it on your part. You already sort of answered it. I wanted to ask you, how do you take care of your own mental health when navigating these difficult cases?
That's a great question. I think having good people around you is a very important thing. I mean, it's a role people that are going to support you. My litigation paralegals, they go to trial with me. They have a tremendous amount of experience. They support me in every way possible. And I think that, they'll tell me to pull my head out of my ass when they need to, like we're very close. And I think having those types of people around you and supporting you, matter more than a lot of people think. And I treat those people as well as I possibly can because I need them to be there for me. I think having a good support structure at home, a family that understands what you're doing, talking to your family about it so they understand the significance of the case that you're working on. So when you're not home quite a bit because you're going through a ton of depots at that time, let's say, or, expert depositions, for instance, that they understand those kinds of things as well. And then I think, taking care of yourself, taking time, I like to work out. I work out pretty much every day. I've got a wife that motivates me in that regard as well. So it's a good thing, I think, to just kind of get into a good routine, keep healthy, and keep your mind going, keep it active, and always be prepared for what's coming next. Try to stay ahead of your opponent on the other side. And I think you'll do well mentally dealing with those kinds of things. But, you're always going to have the pressure and the stress of, what if I let this person down? What if I can't beat this number? Or a depot goes wrong, or an expert shits the bed, and you're kind of like, you got to fix that mess. And I think what people don't see is the constant delicate balancing of a case behind the scenes, and all the nuanced stuff that goes into your expert disclosures, your supplemental, like, let's say, to an issue that comes up in a deposition where you have to handle that, how you address it, thinking critically through that, bouncing those ideas off those paralegals that we talked about, and staying ahead of your opponent, so you can mentally feel confident and comfortable that you've done everything that you possibly can for these folks. I also think that, honestly, having the trial experience and having that history helps, because that they know that you can knock this thing out of the park. They have real risk on their side, right? So if you haven't had that experience yet and you're handling that kind of a case, I could see where there's a lot of pressure that adds up, because you don't really know if you can hit that number. They know that you never really have, and they're going to leverage that against you. That's just the truth.
For the attorneys listening, Jason, what do you think are some of the keys to securing the best possible outcome at trial and for your claimants?
Yeah, it's, every case is different, right? Every venue is going to be a little different in terms of how you approach things. But I think generally, one of the big things, I think, is that you have to be invested in your case. Both monetarily, but also emotionally. You have to really know your case inside out and backwards, and you have to believe in it. You really have to believe in your case. You have to believe what you're saying. If you don't have that credibility or authenticity of what you're saying, that you actually truly believe deep down inside, it's going to come across that way, and you're going to get skewered. You're going to get hurt. So I think really believing in yourself, believing in your case, getting the experience that you need to get to that point in your career is first and foremost. And then, having the right people around you, like I said before, is critical as well. That also has experience in the courtroom and has that type of balance of both the knowledge, but also the experience, and, knowing the case, knowing the clients, and working really well with you. And then it comes down to a lot of other, of the nuanced stuff, I think, that, people, again, don't really see, which is in the preparation, right? Where you've got to really prepare what witness you're going to call when, how you're putting that evidence on, what they've stipulated to, what they haven't. So you're going to change your witnesses up based on who you need to get what into evidence to tell the story the way that you want to tell it, in, a manner that you want to tell it. And then I think, from there, it's, just working through those nuance between witness and getting the evidence in. Keep your trial shorter, not longer. I think people try to go on too long. They like to be on the stage, or they're nervous and they're fumbling a little bit and they don't know what to do. So they just keep asking questions. When the point's been made, now you're boring the jury. Not a good thing. I try telling younger lawyers a lot of times too, silence is okay. A pause in the courtroom, just waiting, thinking through the next question. Jurors appreciate that more than you just rambling off multiple things where you're scrambling, looking for papers, right? If I find myself doing something like that, where I'm looking for something, I can't find it, and I'm holding everybody up, I know I'm losing the jury, right? That's a bad thing. So I think being prepared, having everything lined up so that it's crystal clear, coming across quick for the jury. For instance, if you're not using your own people, I use a lot of times an outside contractor that I work with, two different people mainly. It's either one guy or the other who does my audio, visuals, and my exhibits. And I will work with him, so my paralegal doesn't have to. I will work with him the night before. I'll go through my witnesses. I'll go through what I'm trying to do, what I need to get out. And they'll have those exhibits with the page, the paragraph, maybe in a medical record by way of example, highlighted, ready to go. Or they got it ready to go so that they can do it on the fly. Boom, zoomed in, boom, highlight. Everything is moving smoothly. It's not a delay. It's not hey, do you have that? No, the second paragraph. No, down a little bit below. No, right here. No, zoom in right there. If you're doing that, it comes across horrible. You have to be efficient and quick with your time and not waste the jury's time as well. Being authentic, like I said before, all of those things help you put on that trial. I also think it's even before the trial, going into a pretrial conference and having a list of things that you want to go through with the court, moving about the well, striking jurors for not peremptories, but oh my God, I'm drawing, what the hell am I trying to say? Cause challenges. So you could edit that out. But it is true though. Like I talk to younger lawyers and I tell them a lot of times, establish yourself as a leader at the pretrial conference. Have a list of things that you want to go through that only real trial lawyers are going to ask and really want to know to put on a good trial. Watch the judge tell you you can get 30 minutes for voir dire in Colorado, 20, and then they give you 30. Watch them tell you, okay, I'll give you 30. And then watch them say, all right, I'll give you a little more leeway if you're not wasting the jury's time. You clearly know what you're doing. When you get judges saying that to you consistently, you're starting to establish yourself with the court, the clerk, the judge, everyone in the courtroom as a leader in the courtroom, someone that's been there and done that. That translates throughout the trial. Okay. Totally. And also following through with it, being quicker with witnesses, not too quick, right? Understand the court reporter. You don't want her yelling at you to slow down or him yelling at you, because you're flying through things too fast.
Yeah.
But putting on an efficient trial that jurors are going to appreciate and understand, and having that done in a way that's smooth, is really important.
Well, that's the difference. I think there's a lot of smart people that can't connect with juries like other people can. Right. They don't have the interpersonal skills to understand what sort of information a juror might find useful, what sort of tone and body language they might find.
Right. I think you're 100% right. And look, you have to know your strengths, right? Like I know my strength is not necessarily brief writing. Like I know that I can do it and I can maybe do it as good as this, lawyer over here, but she may do it way quicker, much more efficient. And it sounds just a little bit better, has a better chance of winning. So obviously I'm going to surround myself with people that are going to fill those gaps that I need. And I think the same goes with people that maybe might not be as good in the courtroom or might not connect as well with jurors. They have to know that, right? You have to know where your weaknesses and strengths are and play to them for sure.
An underappreciated facet of personal injury law is definitely the science. How well have you become when viewing the medical issues and the science and your personal injury cases?
That's a wonderful, wonderful question. I once had I was speaking at a convention and a lawyer was up speaking before me. And I remember them saying something like, you can't out neurosurgeon a neurosurgeon. And I was thinking to myself, like, well, you better fucking try. Like, what are you talking about? You're just going to let them ramble? You better know the science. You better know the medicine. There are times where I won't even take that expert's deposition on the defense side. I'll spend my money and my time learning it from my expert neurosurgeon. How is this guy's report full of shit? Tell me how I should be cross-examining him. Give me the medical evidence. Give me the literature. Teach it to me. I do that with engineers a lot. I get the medicine quicker now than anything. When I'm dealing with engineers, explosion cases. I had a liquid oxygen explosion case where I told the guy, you're going to talk to me like I'm a fourth grader until I tell you talk to me like an adult. And I mean that. Like, you're going to talk to me like I'm a child until I understand this, because I need to understand this inside out and backwards. I can't go in knowing the least about the technology between these two experts, right? So I think you got to be willing to become an expert in almost any field that you're going to be stepping into, whether it's a brain injury case, a spinal injury case, whether it's, like I said, a liquid oxygen explosion case.
Any of these physical accident cases, they all involve
an airbag expert. It took me probably 2.5 months to really fully know that I could go in there and try an airbag case against Ford. It's just, I was like, okay, this is the sensors here, right? I mean, it's like, how does this thing really work? Why was this thing faulty? How did it really, there's a lot more to it than just, port A, part B, and this goes to this, and that's a 30,000 foot view. Okay. There's a time for that. But when you're getting ready to get into a trial, you better know, a hell of a lot more than that. Right. Totally. So yeah, you have to become an expert in the field. And if you're not willing to, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah. Well, that's unbelievable. apart from some of the verdicts we've mentioned, and some of the ones I left off here include a $131 million verdict that your firm was involved in. You had a partner work on that.
Yeah,
you had a 74.
That was the Seattle one that was a while ago now. That was like
a $74 million case you guys were involved in.
Right.
Obviously, the one we mentioned with you, over $40 million, and you had a handful of $40 million verdicts that you guys
had 42 a couple of years ago. The one that you were talking about was a 45 settlement recently. That was an it was a vehicle and motorcycle crash. A young man that sustained terrible injury.
I just want to say that's unbelievable for any law firm in the country. So I want to congratulate you on that. But apart from some of those verdicts, what have been some other proud moments for you as a litigator?
Yeah, that's good. That's a great question. I think the money side of things, yeah, it's great. Like, I'm not going to lie, right? It's great. And people love to hear that stuff. But for me, it's okay. What made the case worth that kind of money? The injury, right? Maybe the conduct as well, but the value, it's the injuries, right? So, we had one that was up there as well. A couple of years back out of Oklahoma, where my client, he was just before his 23rd birthday, he burned up in a vehicle, and he lost his arm from like here, and then he had a bit of a thumb, and then the rest of this was gone, and just like this part of his arm was left down to here. It was really bizarre looking. The injuries were horrible. He was burned everywhere, like I said. And by the end of the case, he was crying on the phone. I mean, hysterical. When we told him that it was done, it settled. And he had already we had already lined up then. We knew where we were going. Prosthetics that can connect to the central nervous system. He can feel. He has his arms and hands back. He can pick up a glass. He can use it. Wow. He can drink out of it. And you stop and you think to yourself, Ann Deeriff in my office did a ton of work on this case, a ton. We litigated this thing very close to trial. We have the trial experience to put them in a position where they're wanting to resolve the case. And now I'm part of a team of people that were able to give this guy his arms and hands back. If that doesn't motivate you to be happy and proud with what you do, and to feel rewarded, for all the work that you put in, and frankly, to know that you made a good career choice and that you're making, you're actually helping people in your community and helping people in the world, then nothing will. So the money part of it, yeah, it's great. I'm not going to lie, but really, when you hear those phone calls, when they're crying, and when I get the pictures, they text me videos of, his mom will text me videos of him using his hands and working through therapy with them and getting used to them. Wow, that's
amazing.
You can't help but start to, choke up a little bit and realize, I did that, we did that. That's a great feeling.
That's amazing. Amazing. So again, I want to congratulate you on all your work at Jordan Law. But amidst all the success with your law firm, you decided with your wife, Michelle, who's great, to start a separate company, Iconographics. Yeah. Can you just briefly talk about what Iconographics does?
So Iconographics is a animation illustration company that really supports trial lawyers around the country doing forensic accident reconstruction, medical device type stuff, where you could really get into the engineering behind something, or look into biomechanical forces and how they affected the body in an accident. As well as helping with the medical side with doctors and, illustrations or showing medical animations with respect to surgeries that people went through, that sort of a thing. It really helps a jury understand, the complexities of your case and the seriousness, the significance of the injuries, or the complexity of maybe the product, that failure or something like that. So it's really cool and exciting. Really, it was an idea that her and I kind of came up with a few other folks, and she really just kind of took it and ran with it. So, we have 9 kids between now 22 and about 21 months. And yeah, about 21 months now. And, my wife's just a machine. I mean, she got to a
9 kids. You have 9 kids?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. God bless you.
Thank you. And I was like thinking, how are you going to do this? I mean, this is nuts. We're so busy, right? But she's a machine, and she took off with it. She loves it. She's ran with it. She's got the right people in place. But it was really using those types of services with other companies as a trial lawyer, and us seeing problems in that area where, pricing's outrageous sometimes, just where it's ridiculous, or, change orders are always a problem, or they're not meaningfully working with your experts, and you're getting something that you didn't really want, or that your expert didn't really want to help support their testimony. So, we saw a need for it, and Michelle really took it and ran it, and it's been doing wonderful. I mean, she was brought on to do that. I think it was a 100+ car pileup in Dallas a few years back that had, I think, 4 or 5 fatalities in it. She was hired by a number of law firms that coordinated to bring her on for that. And Iconographics has done a lot all over the country now.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I've personally seen the animations myself. I got to say that's super impressive. And I can see how it's so helpful for attorneys at trial.
It really is. And it helps juries. It helps you get the jury to understand exactly what it is that you're talking about in many different ways, whether it's a really understanding something that's really complex, or just seeing the significance and the seriousness of a polytrauma injury, where it's like, oh shit, you put it all together like that. And it's like, they really understand just what that person is going through, It's
almost like people can understand it too. Like, let's just say they can understand it, but to actually visualize it,
right,
in our brain, there's a different sort of connection that gets triggered.
Right. And there are people like me that are just visual learners. So I may get it to a point, but until I actually see it, I really didn't get it. You know what I mean? And that's how I am. I'm a visual learner. I've always been that way. Yeah. So, I think it really does. It's a really fascinating thing that I think a lot of people out there, a lot of lawyers, they'll say things like, well, it's a $20,000 case. I can't really use animation. Okay. Yeah, you're right. But maybe you can get an illustration of board that could help you, something like that. But moreover, when you get to value of cases that people are nervous about their case, about their losing it, how much money they're spending, or, I've never spent that much money, this and that, I can't do. And it's like, you're looking at it the wrong way. You can't afford not to do it. Like, the case could be so good that when you do that, they know you're ready to go to trial. They know on the other side, this is like, they've got really good images. A jury is going, it's like a day in the life video that's really well put together. Are they going to motion to strike that video? Hell yeah, they're going to try to motion to strike that. Are they going to motion to strike your animation? 100% of the time, they're going to try to strike your animation.
Always.
Why? Because they know it helps us so much.
Because it works.
You can get it in for demonstrative purposes. They can't strike it. You can get it into evidence if you want. They're not going to strike it. There's great rulings on that. But ask yourself, why are they trying to strike it all the time? It's because they know how bad it is for them,
What I find interesting is the ways they might try and degrade the video by, maybe it's overly emotional or right?
You could have, I had this once where I had them put my client's face, an exact likeness of my client's face, on the animation. And the judge was starting to buy the argument pre-trial. I don't know, that's a little bit too close, this and that. And they had brought out like a printout of it to show the judge, right? Look at this. This is too much. It's too emotional, this and that. And he started to buy it. So I had my own printout. I had it, and I was like, what he didn't know is I had one behind it where it was more of a generic man, not him. So as soon as he made his ruling, I was like, so would this one be appropriate? And he just looked at me laughing like, you son of a bitch. Like, you knew I was going to probably rule that way. So I had it done both ways. I was like, slap one on like this and put one on with his actual face in case, they're going to, say, hey, you can't use that. I don't want to be stuck last minute with having to go back to Iconographics and say, hey, can you guys please fix this?
Well, that's what's so interesting to me. The designers who are making these videos, and they make them custom made for every case, and they have a team that's unbelievable. But
yeah, they match the imaging perfectly. I mean, you can take the images and then zoom into the actual animation of the surgery going on. It's really cool.
They have to be cognizant of all these issues at trial. These
they are,
these prejudicial issues, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. So because they've done it for so many years, they know just as much as the lawyer, and sometimes more than the lawyer, because the lawyer may not have done animations or used them in trial before, or maybe very limited exposure to them, whereas they have nothing but that experience, right? So they know, hey, you're going to need this to get it into evidence. Here's how we do that, et cetera. Here are the questions you might want to be asking. Just like we were mentioning earlier, and I didn't really touch upon this, but one of the reasons why I use my audio-visual people that I use for my trials, so it's not sidetracking my staff, et cetera. One of the other reasons why I use them, honestly, is it's almost like a free jury consult. I'm already paying for them. All they do are trials. They see more trials than even the judge does. These guys, they go from state to state every week. They're on the road somewhere doing these trials, right? Mm-hmm. There's been times where I did it one time and I realized my mistake, never do it again, where the other side was like, hey, can we just split the cost with that person? And I was like, all right, yeah. And then they pulled me aside and they're like, you realize I can't be a jury consultant. I can't talk to you about the case then. And I was like, wait a minute, that was a bad idea. Because I actually spend my time walking out of court back to a VRBO or something during trial, talking to him, getting, hey, what'd you think? And he's telling me, juror number, whatever, they didn't like this, or, you need to touch upon this again, or really hit their expert with this issue because they were really getting that. That was really pissing these two off. I can't be staring at them the whole time, right? So I have somebody, my paralegal, but I also have that person doing it. A little bit of a jump back to what we were talking to before. But
no, totally. But yeah, makes sense. You have to be cognizant of all these factors at trial.
Right.
As we mentioned before, it helps to actually visualize what iconographics does if you actually see it firsthand. So we're going to play a short clip of an animation that you guys might use at trial for our viewers. So Jason, obviously, it's amazing what you guys do. I want to congratulate on all the amazing work you're doing at your law firm, but also the work you're doing with this company, Iconographics. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would encourage lawyers. I think the one thing I would say, people try cases. Just try cases. I mean, it's when I became a member of a BOTA, I forget the actual numbers off the top of my head, but it was an insurance defense lawyer, that guy that I've known for years, that was up there talking. That was the president of the Colorado chapter at the time. And he was telling us the percent of population, right? The population was this in like 1955. These were the amount of jury trials in the civil world that went to trial. And look at a percentage, right? Look at a ratio. Compared to today, there's so many more people and there's like a tenth of the amount of jury trials. And it's really a shame. It really is. And you see, frankly, you see it in the level of lawyering oftentimes. You see it in judges not even having that much experience sometimes in terms of, you get a judge that was maybe a public defender that comes into the civil world. And I got one coming up soon where judge, I'm being told his longest trial is a 3-day trial. And I'm like, I'm getting rulings that don't make any sense. And I'm like, how does that happen? And then you realize, well, it was a public defender, it was, I could throw anything into evidence and say anything, even if it's just a possibility that can throw a shadow of doubt, reasonable doubt. Whereas in a civil case, it's got to have some relevance, right? To something that's like, and so it's like, you're hearing these arguments being made and the judge buying stuff. You're just like, what the hell's going on?
Well, I mean, that's also a testament to all the money pouring into these law firms, all the hedge fund money, some of the stuff, the ABSs. Law firms are less becoming counsel that is working case by case, tailoring their counsel to a specific claimant and going to trial and doing the dirty work. Whereas they might be just buying up these cases, doing all the advertising, settling them at low values. And then they develop the reputation, and that kind of expands in the space. And we see more and more of that, I think, today.
Yeah, it's problematic. There's no question about it. There's multiple things there. One, you just described it, right? And then two, a lot of that heavy advertising works. So people wind up calling a lot of those folks they've seen on TV for 20 years or whatnot. And don't get me wrong, some of them are absolutely great and they try cases. But if you've got thousands of cases, right? I mean, how many can you try? You can't try them all. But you wind up, I think, where big money comes in. Look at Arizona. You don't have to be a lawyer now to own a law firm, right? So you got hedge fund money. You got people coming in, buying these law firms up, buying up cases. And they literally call them inventory, like you hear being used in mass tort world.
Totally.
You hear that being now coined in single event torts. And you're like, okay, so they're just inventory. Your clients are literally like widgets to you, right? And they're not intending on litigating them. Some of those firms don't litigate anything. They kick them out to firms like me. And they're certainly not going to be trying any of them. So you think they're getting the value that a firm like mine or another legit trial law firm that's more of a boutique firm can get on that case? Of course not. But they're churning and burning. So it's a shame that's happened, and it's a shame it's going to continue to happen. I heard Colorado's actually considering adopting a rule like that of Arizona, which it's already one of the most competitive areas in the state or in the country. It's a shame that the legal practice has gone that route. And then, I did a podcast, or I did a video for my own pages recently, and I haven't posted it yet, but I was talking to someone about it, where the level of professionalism that I've seen just dropping further and further down as officers of the court, it just amazes me. I mean, stuff I see online, publicly on like social media from officers of the court is really surprising to me and saddening, to be honest, but probably a conversation for another day. But
I know.
I think
I don't know what the remedy is.
What's that?
I don't know what the remedy is for that. I think it's just
time will tell.
We got to see what sort of changes hit the legal space. It's almost like it's turning more and more into like insurance.
How so?
The plaintiff side of it, like treating claimants as just like a number, and they'll settle if they get to the policy, right? And just
that's not wrong. I mean, you look at it like a claims adjuster; they've got a pile of how many cases on their desk. You're just a number to them, right? They don't care about you. If they can get it off the desk, they can trick you into settling that or get you to take that without having a lawyer on board. And they know they would have to pay 4 or 5 times more than that, or 10 times more, or more than that. If you had a lawyer who knew what they were doing, they're happy. They don't care. They're just getting it off the desk.
Yeah.
They don't care about you.
Well, as you mentioned, so I want to make a point. It's not all the firms that advertise are not boutique firms that litigate the cases. There are a select few though that, and it's saddening because those are the ones that claimants tend to go to because they don't have knowledge in the legal space of who's who and the reputations. Oftentimes those insurance companies might lowball those firms because they know they'll get a settlement out of them.
Right. And I'm glad you did say that because I always try to say that as well. There are some that are on TV for a while that have a damn good trial team.
Totally.
You just can't try them all. So it's like, he's a great lawyer or she's a wonderful attorney and fantastic, but is she really working on your case? Right. But I also think that, there's a lot of people that it's like, you don't know what you don't know. Right. So if you're a lay person, my wife once, we had an issue and she called, Rotor Plumber. And I used advertiser's name in the legal world. And I said, you called the blankety blank a plumber. It's like, what'd you do? They came in, they messed up a ejection system and a grinder that was in a subfloor basement. They're like in there with a snake. Just
You got to get a guy from New Jersey.
What's that?
You got to get one of your Jersey guys.
I actually have a very good friend, Rob Salvatore. I grew up with, started a great plumbing business back there. But
no, I know what you mean.
But no, I mean, she called the first one she saw on like Google. They show up right away. They're there right away. And this guy has no experience and he's just ripping my grinder up. And it cost me, you know, I had to now fight their legal department to friggin' fix it. It was awful. Yeah. But but
talking's key, and talking with people and getting the right sort of representation is important.
Absolutely.
But Jason, I just want to thank you again for taking the time.
For sure, man.
You're on vacation. I want to wish you a great rest of your vacation.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you coming on, as I mentioned, both as an entrepreneur and as an attorney.
All right, Rocco, it was good seeing you, man.
Yep.
Take care.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Law, AI, and Money podcast. If you enjoyed our conversation, be sure to like and subscribe so we can keep the conversation going. Thank you.